All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dive in.
Great. So today we're looking at a document that caught my eye. It's titled, well, actually, it's not titled, Untitled Document. That's what we're calling it anyway.
Catchy, I like it.
Yeah, keeps the mystery alive. But it's actually all about leadership styles, specifically ones to avoid. And get this, it draws a parallel between these bad leadership qualities and women and children.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting approach.
Yeah, no, it definitely raised some eyebrows for me too.
Yeah,
And, right off the bat, gotta say, some of the ideas in here are, well, a bit outdated, maybe even a bit problematic.
definitely sensitive territory.
But here's the thing. I think even with a document like this, even if the foundation is shaky, we can still learn something, by dissecting it, figuring out where it goes wrong.
I agree. Analyzing what not to do can be just as valuable as seeing what works. Sort of a learn from the mistakes of others kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
So let's get into it. Right at the beginning, the document pulls a quote from Isaiah 3.12. It says, and I'll quote here, "As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to err, and destroy the way of thy paths." Powerful stuff.
Definitely a strong statement. And immediately connecting women and children leading to a downfall, basically.
Right, and that sets the stage for the whole document's argument. Basically, it's saying effective leaders shouldn't act like women or children. Actually, there's a line that says, you must avoid developing a leadership style that is akin to the leadership of a child, and you must avoid developing a leadership style that is akin to the leadership of a woman.
Wow. It's interesting how directly they state it. No room for interpretation there.
No kidding. So let's try to break this down. First up, childish leadership. Now, the document uses phrases like behaving like a child, but doesn't really give specifics. So I got to ask, what pops into your head when you hear that phrase? What does that look like, especially in a work setting?
Hmm. Behaving like a child.
Well, I think for me, the first thing that comes to mind is a lack of emotional intelligence. It's almost like, you know, being controlled by your emotions instead of being in control of them. And in a leadership role, that can be really detrimental.
That makes sense. Emotional intelligence is huge, right? Being able to understand not just your own feelings, but the feelings of your team, too.
Exactly. And when a leader lacks that, it can lead to all sorts of problems, impulsive decisions, difficulty communicating effectively, not taking responsibility for their actions. And these things can really erode trust and make it hard to build a strong team.
Yeah. No one wants to work for someone who's unpredictable or, yeah, throws a tantrum when things go wrong.
Right. It's just not a sustainable or healthy way to lead. And speaking of those tantrums, I think that's a perfect example of what the document might be getting at with childish behavior.
Makes sense. Instead of taking a step back and thinking things through, it's just reacting in the moment, and probably not in a productive way. Exactly. Another example that comes to mind is, playing favorites, kind of like a child who always wants to play with the same toy. In a professional setting, that translates to favoring certain team members over others, which can create resentment and division.
Yeah, that definitely wouldn't foster a collaborative environment. Now, moving on to the womanly leadership part. This is where it gets even trickier. The document actually says, and I quote, that women need to be softened and toned down to be effective leaders.
Ugh, that's so frustrating to hear. It's just dripping with these old, tired stereotypes about women.
It really is. And what's even more frustrating is that it completely ignores all those positive qualities, often associated with women in leadership.
Exactly. We're talking empathy, strong communication skills, the ability to build consensus, and that natural inclination towards collaboration. These are incredibly valuable traits, and not just for women, but for any leader, really.
I couldn't agree more. And honestly, it's mind-boggling that they're overlooking all these amazing female leaders throughout history.
Right. I mean, look at someone like Jacinda Ardern. Her leadership style was so transformative. She led with empathy, made tough decisions during crises. She really challenged those traditional leadership stereotypes. And then you have Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who, through her advocacy and commitment to justice, redefined leadership within the judicial system. I mean, these are just two examples of how effective leadership transcends gender.
Absolutely. They prove that leadership isn't about fitting into a box. It's about bringing your unique strengths to the table.
Exactly. It's about embracing diversity and recognizing that different approaches can be equally successful.
Okay, so we've established that this document's core arguments are, well, flawed. But I'm curious, can we take anything useful away from this? Can we maybe spin these negative portrayals into positive leadership lessons?
Absolutely. I think reframing is key here. For example, instead of saying avoid childish behavior, we can focus on developing emotional intelligence. Similarly, rather than dismissing womanly traits, we can emphasize the importance of diverse leadership styles that embrace empathy, collaboration, and inclusivity.
That's a great point. It's like taking those negative labels and turning them into something positive and actionable.
Precisely. It's about looking beyond the surface and finding the deeper lesson. Because even a flawed argument can spark a valuable conversation and lead to new insights.
I totally agree. And, at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do here, to spark that conversation and encourage people to think critically about leadership. So on that note, I want to leave you all with a question. What other potentially negative leadership styles, maybe ones we haven't even touched on today, can we learn from? Think about those leaders you encountered, the good and the bad, and what you might take away from their approaches. Keep those wheels turning and keep diving deep.
Great question to leave us on. Always keep learning and growing.